Mom abandoned me when I was a kid to marry a man who didn't want kids. And years later, she showed up begging for a relationship after her husband left her, then faked assault injuries to extort money from me. I was 7 when my mother packed 2 suitcases and told me she was going on a trip. She knelt down and said she'd be back in a week. That was 15 years ago. My grandmother raised me after that. She never badmouthed my mother, just told me some people aren't ready to be parents, and it had nothing to do with me. I found out later my mother had met a wealthy man named Dominic, who told her flat out he didn't want children in his life, so she chose him. Moved to his lake house 4 states away and started over like I never existed. No birthday calls, no Christmas cards, nothing. My grandmother worked 2 jobs to keep me fed and clothed. She taught me how to cook, fix things, save money. By 22, I'd graduated college debt-free on scholarships and bought a small house 6 blocks from my grandmother's place. Life was finally good. Then 3 months ago, my doorbell rang at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. I opened the door, and there she was, my mother. She looked older and exhausted with dark circles under her eyes and clothes wrinkled like she'd been sleeping in them. "Hi, baby," she said like 15 years hadn't passed. "Can I come in?" I stared at the woman who'd left me for a man's lake house. "What do you want?" She started crying immediately. Dominic had left her for someone younger, cleaned out their joint account. The lake house was in his name, so she had nothing. No job, no savings, no friends because he'd isolated her from everyone. She needed a place to stay, just for a little while. "You left me when I was 7, I said. "I know, and I'm so sorry. Please just give me one chance." Against every instinct, I let her sleep on the couch for one night. One night turned into a week. The week turned into a month. She rearranged my furniture without asking, ate my food without replacing it, ran up my electric bill. She'd cry every time I mentioned her leaving and twisted into a guilt trip about how hard her life had been. She never once asked about my grandmother who actually raised me. One morning I told her she needed to find her own place by Friday. Her face changed instantly. "After everything I've been through, you'd throw your own mother onto the street? You threw me away first," I said. I was 7 years old. She stormed out, slamming my front door so hard the frame cracked. I figured that was the end of it. 2 days later, 2 police officers showed up at my door. My mother had gone to the station with bruises covering both arms and a swollen black eye, claiming I had beaten her when she asked for help. She filed photos and told them her son was violent and she feared for her life. The officers were professional but firm. They needed my side. I told them the truth. She'd been staying with me. I asked her to leave. She left on her own. Nobody touched anybody. One officer asked if I could verify that. I almost said no, but then remembered my grandmother had insisted I install security cameras last year after break-ins on our street. I pulled up the footage and showed them the exact moment my mother walked out. No confrontation, no physical contact. She opened the door herself, slammed it, and walked to her car completely unharmed. The officers watched it twice. One zoomed in on the timestamp and compared it to her filed photos. "These bruises appear very fresh, a few hours old at most." He looked at his partner. "She left his house 2 full days before filing this report." They called my mother back to the station. She showed up confident with her tears already loaded. The officer played my footage on the monitor without warning. Her face drained of all color. "This shows you leaving his home uninjured 48 hours before you filed your report. Care to explain how you got those injuries?" She tried saying I'd gone to her motel afterward. The officer pulled up my work badge log showing I was at my office both days until 6 p.m. with home camera footage confirming I was back by 6:30 each evening. Her story collapsed in real time. My mother's voice turned desperate. "He's an engineer. He manipulated the timestamps." The officer closed his notebook. "Ma'am, filing a false report is a criminal offense. Fabricating assault evidence to extort a family member carries additional charges." She tried crying one final time, but nobody was buying it. The mask had slipped, and all that was left was a woman who'd abandoned her child and came back expecting to be rescued. My grandmother picked me up that evening. She didn't say much on the drive home. When we pulled into my driveway, she squeezed my hand and said, "Some people only show up when they need something." I haven't heard from my mother since.